Some conversations stay with you not because of what was said but because of what you were never supposed to hear. Katie Marsh had been standing on that garden path for less than 2 minutes when she understood that everything she thought she knew about that afternoon was wrong. She did not go back inside. She did not say a word to anyone. And by the time the sun dropped behind the oaks on that quiet Lake Oswego street, she had already made the clearest decision of her life. That afternoon had started the way most of Ryan's family visits did, politely, carefully, with just enough warmth to make the edges feel soft. Ryan's parents had driven out to the Caldwell house that Sunday with something specific to say. A date had been discussed, a timeline was forming, and the visit carried the particular weight of a conversation that had already been decided before anyone sat down. Katie had known it the moment she walked through the door. Inside, Diane Caldwell sat across from her with a cup of tea she barely touched and a line of questions she had clearly prepared. Where exactly in Southern Oregon was Katie from? What her degree covered? Whether her parents still worked at the school? What her plan was now that she had graduated? Frank sat nearby and said little. Ryan answered some of the questions before Katie could, which she noticed, and she noticed something else too: the way Ryan's expression changed as the conversation went on. It started neutral. Then it went careful. Then it became something she could only describe as the face of a person who suddenly realizes the room is not going the way they expected. Katie smiled through all of it. When there was a pause, she set her glass down and told Diane she had spotted the flower beds on the way in and would love to take a closer look if that was all right. Diane said of course. Katie stepped outside. The path along the side of the house was paved in flat stone bordered by raised beds that were genuinely worth stopping for. She had only taken a few steps when she heard Ryan's voice through an open window just above her. He was talking to his mother. He was defending her. There are moments when you hear something that was never meant for you and you have about 3 seconds to decide what kind of person you are. Katie stopped walking. She stayed. Ryan was telling his mother about the degree first. Hospitality and tourism, he said, which meant Katie could work with international clients, manage travel accounts, handle foreign bookings. Diane let him finish. Then she said that was a fine degree for someone who wanted to spend their career processing other people's vacations. And asked whether Katie had any plans beyond that. Ryan said she graduated with honors. Diane said honors in that field was not the same as honors in something that opened doors. Ryan said she had strong English, nearly fluent, which was rare. Diane asked where she had studied it. Ryan said her grandmother had taught her. A retired schoolteacher from her hometown. Diane was quiet for just a moment, and that pause carried more dismissal than anything she had said out loud. She said a grandmother in a small-town school was not language training. She said fluency meant something when it came with credentials behind it, not kitchen table lessons. She said Katie's family had been in education for at least 2 generations and had nothing to show for it: her mother in a classroom, her grandmother before that, and if the pattern held, that was probably where Katie was headed too. Ryan tried again. Diane absorbed it and kept going. By the 3rd or 4th exchange, Ryan was not so much arguing as he was filling space, and Diane was not angry, she was categorizing, which was worse. There is something particular about being defended by someone who is already losing the argument. It is not comfort. It is just a slower version of being left alone in the room. Katie stood still on the path. Diane had not finished. Then Diane changed direction. She stopped talking about Katie's resume and started talking about Katie's intentions. She asked Ryan if he remembered the first time he brought Katie to the condo. The way she reacted when she walked through the door. Ryan said she was excited, that was normal. Diane said there was excited, and what she saw that day was a girl who had just done the math. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, good neighborhood, and Ryan was the key. He said that was not what it was. Diane said she had seen it before. She told him about a hiring committee she had sat on 2 years ago. 2 candidates, both recent graduates, one of them polished and prepared, and one of them underdressed and too eager, answering questions before she had finished asking them. Diane had voted against her. The rest of the committee hired her anyway. She said that type did not wait for things to come to them, they moved fast and they held on. Frank said something quiet from the other side of the room. Diane told him it was not relevant and kept going. Ryan was not arguing anymore. Not really. He said he had been thinking. He said maybe they should slow down, maybe filing the license right now was not, and then his voice dropped, or he turned away from the window because Katie could not make out the rest of the sentence. She did not need to. There is a specific sound to the moment someone you trusted decides out loud that the people who were wrong about you might have had a point. It does not come with a raised voice. It comes quiet, almost reasonable, and that is exactly what makes it the thing you do not forget. Katie took one step back from the window, then another. She did not slam a gate or say goodbye to anyone. She walked back along the stone path at the same pace she had used to walk down it, pushed the front gate open and turned toward the street. The oak-lined neighborhood was quiet in the mid-afternoon. Nobody saw her leave. The shopping plaza was 4 blocks away. She got there in time to catch a bus already pulling up to the stop, paid her fare and took a seat near the back. Once the suburbs started giving way to the highway, she turned her phone off and set it face down on her knee. She did not look at it again for 40 minutes. She got off one stop from Ryan's building and checked the parking lot from the sidewalk before she went in. His car was not there. She took the elevator up, unlocked the door and had everything she owned packed into 2 large duffel bags and her laptop case in under 4 minutes. She had not brought much. That made it easier. She called a ride-share from the lobby and carried everything down herself. Outside, sitting on the low wooden bench near the parking lot, she turned her phone back on. 7 missed calls from Ryan. The first one had come in 20 minutes ago. She did not call back. She opened a new text, typed out what she needed to say. I was standing outside the window. I heard everything. Your mother is right. There will not be a wedding, and hit send. Then she blocked his number. The clearest decisions you ever make are usually the ones you make without saying a word out loud to anyone. You just know and then you move. The rideshare pulled up 2 minutes later. Tamara Wells lived in a 1-bedroom on the east side of Portland, close enough to the river that you could hear the bridges on quiet nights. She and Stevie had been splitting the rent for 2 years, both of them working shifts at the same hospital, Tamara on days, Stevie rotating through nights and weekends. When Katie called from the rideshare and said she needed a place, Tamara said get here and hung up. By the time Katie climbed the stairs with her 2 bags, Stevie was already pulling an old fold-out chair away from the wall and telling her it opened into something close enough to a bed. They did not ask for the full story that night. They could read the outline well enough from the bags. Around 9, a number Katie did not recognize lit up her phone. She picked up. It was Ryan calling from a friend's cell because she had blocked his number. He said she had misunderstood. He said his mother never meant it, the way it came out. He said he was coming to get her and they could talk through all of it in person. Katie let him get through most of that before she stopped him. Then she repeated 3 things back at him. Word for word, the grandmother who did not count as real, training the family that sat in classrooms and went nowhere. And the girl on that hiring committee Diane had voted against because she reminded her too much of Katie. Ryan went quiet. She told him if he called again he would not enjoy how she answered. Then she ended the call. Quoting someone's exact words back at them is not a rebuttal. It is a door closing. Tamara looked at Stevie. Stevie looked at Tamara. Neither of them said much. They did not need to. The week after she left did not feel like a victory. It felt like a waiting room. Katie slept on the fold-out chair and kept her bags pushed against the wall to take up less space. Every morning she was up before Tamara's alarm, coffee made, laptop open, working through whatever the job boards had added overnight. Most of it was not what she had spent 4 years working toward. A lakeside resort outside Hood River needed housekeeping staff. A recreational outfitter up near Bend was looking for a trail guide on a horseback route. She called both, asked a few questions and crossed them off. They were real jobs. They were just not the direction she had trained for, and she was not ready to call that yet. She called 3 travel agencies in Portland directly. 2 had nothing open. The third had a position, but when she asked for details it turned out to be phone-based booking work with no client contact. The kind of role that had nothing to do with why she had studied what she studied. She thanked them and hung up. Tamara checked in once without making it a conversation. She asked how it was going. Katie said slow. Tamara said that, tracked, and went back to her own things. That was the right amount of attention for that particular week. The week after a hard decision is never the week you feel good about it. It is the week you find out whether you actually meant it or whether you were just angry enough to act like you did. Then midway through the following week a new listing appeared. Mid-size firm, Portland office, international operations with a Pacific Rim focus. The kind of posting that looked like it had been written by people who took the work seriously. Katie read it twice and applied the same afternoon. The interview was held in a conference room on the fourth floor of an office building just off Burnside. The committee had 5 people at the table. Katie was one of several applicants called in that morning, and she could tell from the energy in the room that they had already been at it for a while. Her honors diploma got a polite nod. One of the committee members asked a few questions about her coursework, made a note, and moved on. Some of the other applicants had been her classmates at Oregon State. Others came in with years of field experience, and the committee's body language was noticeably different when those names came up. Katie noticed. She did not adjust her expression. Then a younger woman near the end of the table switched to English and asked Katie a question about client management in a cross-cultural context. Katie answered. The woman asked a follow-up. Katie answered that too. The exchange continued for nearly 30 minutes. At some point it had stopped being an interview segment and had become a conversation, and neither of them had acknowledged the shift. The committee chair finally stopped it. He asked the examiner for her assessment. She said Katie's fluency was strong, her comprehension under pressure notably clean, and that her spoken English was well above what the position required. The chair turned to Katie and asked where she had studied. Immersion program, he assumed. Private instruction. Katie said no. A small rural school in southern Oregon. Her grandmother had been a teacher. They used to speak English together at the kitchen table when Katie was young. She kept going because she found it interesting. The room was quiet for a moment. Sometimes the thing someone used to dismiss you turns out to be the exact thing that opens the door. When that happens, you try not to let the satisfaction show on your face. Katie kept her expression even. The committee chair asked whether she had a valid passport, whether she was available for an extended overseas assignment, and how much she knew about Thailand. She answered all 3 briefly and directly. The position had been open for months and they needed someone placed before the busy season started. She got the job. She took the assignment and left Portland 3 weeks later. 2 years passed the way working years do when you are building something fast in memory, long in the living of them. 2 years is long enough that coming back feels like arriving somewhere slightly unfamiliar that you also happen to know by heart. Katie landed in Portland on a Tuesday evening, caught a rideshare to Tamara's building, and climbed the same stairs she had climbed the night she left Ryan's condo with everything she owned in 2 duffel bags. The apartment was different now. Stevie had gotten married the previous spring and moved out to Gresham. Tamara had kept the place, bought a used Civic she said was older than some of her patients, and turned the second half of the living room into something that actually looked intentional. They stayed up late talking. Katie described 2 years of constant heat, client work, long days, and the specific exhaustion of being professionally on in a language that was not the language of the city around her. Tamara described the hospital, a new charge nurse she was still deciding how to feel about, and the car. At some point, Katie mentioned Alex. Her brother had been looking at houses for over a year, running mortgage numbers, trying to figure out what his family could carry. Katie had been setting money aside the entire time she was abroad, enough now to cover a substantial part of the down payment, possibly enough that he would not need a mortgage at all. Alex had helped her get through school. This was the part where she got to return that. Tamara said that was a good thing to do. Katie said she knew. The person you were 2 years ago would not recognize this morning as hers. That is not a sad thing. It is just how it works. The next morning Katie was outside on the front step with her luggage, waiting for the rideshare that would take her to the airport for her connecting flight south. That was when she heard someone say her name. Ryan came from the direction of the parking lot, which meant he had been waiting. He smiled when she looked up, the kind of smile that was working harder than it looked, and said it was good to see her. He said he had heard she was back. Katie asked how. He said her cousin ran into someone at the hospital where Tamara worked and word had gotten back to him that way. He said it like it was a small world, and was not that something. Katie did not say anything. He kept going. How long had it been? She looked great. He had thought about reaching out so many times. Diane came around from behind him a few seconds later with the careful expression of someone who had rehearsed this. She told Katie she owed her an apology. She said what she had said that afternoon in Lake Oswego was not fair, and Katie should have stayed so they could have talked it through properly instead of leaving the way she did. She said it with enough sincerity that it might have worked on someone who had not been standing outside that window. Katie let both of them finish. Then Ryan's voice shifted, not dramatically, just enough. He mentioned that his sister Ashley had gotten married last month, which was wonderful, but the wedding had cost more than they planned. His father had been dealing with a health situation that was going to require surgery, and the insurance coverage had gaps that were going to be difficult to manage. He said he knew Katie had been working abroad for 2 years and had probably done well for herself. He said maybe they had ended things too fast. There was still the condo. His salary had gone up. They could start somewhere real this time. Katie looked at him. Just looked at him without expression until he stopped talking. Diane tried to fill the silence. She said the condo was still there, that the life they had talked about was still possible. Katie let her get 2 sentences in. Then she said quietly and without heat that 2 years ago Diane had told Ryan he was looking at a girl who had done the math on his apartment. That she came from a family that sat in classrooms and went nowhere, and that the only reason she was there was to get her hands on something that was not hers. She said she remembered it clearly. She said she always would. The rideshare pulled up to the curb. Katie picked up her bag and got in. She did not look back at either of them. Behind her, Diane watched the car pull away and said with the particular bitterness of someone who had expected a different outcome, that she never would have predicted that girl from that small town would actually go out and make something of herself. Ryan stood next to his mother for a moment without speaking. Then he told her that was exactly the problem. He said she was the reason he was standing on a sidewalk with nothing, and if that was still true in 10 years they would both know whose voice had been in his head. If you were standing where Katie was that morning, bags packed, ride waiting, 2 years of your own life built without anyone's help, would you have said more? Or would the silence have been enough? Leave your answer in the comments. I would really like to know what you think.